Nintendo DS versus Nintendo 3DS. These two handhelds are one of the greatest handheld rivalries in Nintendo history. So which one had better games, better performance, and better features? That's why we have 13 categories to find out which one of the two handhelds is better. So yeah, let's find out. Number 1. Release year. Nintendo DS was released in 2004 in North America and Japan. In Europe, it was released in 2005. Nintendo DS Lite was released in 2006. Nintendo DSi was released in 2008 in Japan. And worldwide, it was released in 2009. Nintendo DSi XL was released in 2009 in Japan, and worldwide it was released in 2010. The DS family started in 2004 and ended around 2011, just before the 3DS launched. Now Nintendo 3DS was released in 2011. Nintendo DS XL was released in 2012. Nintendo 2DS was released in 2013. New Nintendo 3DS was released in 2014 in Japan, and worldwide it was released in 2015, and new Nintendo 2DS XL was released in 2017. The 3DS family launched in 2011 and continued until around 2020. So Nintendo DS has 4 models, and Nintendo 3DS has 6 models. Just because 3DS has 2 more models than DS, 3DS gets the first point of this video. And I know, just because 3DS has 2 more models than DS, this doesn't mean 3DS has the advantage to win the competition, and that is because Number 2. Sales. Nintendo DS sold 154.02 million units, $18 to $20 billion, and this makes Nintendo DS be the number 2 sold consoles and handhelds of all time, behind PlayStation 2, which it was sold 159 million units and released in 2000. Nintendo 3DS sold 75.94 million units and made around $10 to $12 billion, and this makes number 10 most sold consoles and handhelds of all time. Let's compare to these two handhelds. Nintendo DS sold more units and made more money than Nintendo 3DS by over 2 times. Even the DS launched at a lower price than 3DS. About the sales, Nintendo DS gets the point because of it. And like I said before, just because 3DS has 2 more models than DS, this doesn't mean 3DS has the advantage to win the competition. Now anyway, let's get to the next category. Number 3. Backward compatibility. Now before I'll talk about DS and 3DS backward compatibility, let me explain what is backward compatibility exactly for those who don't know what really that means. Backward compatibility means a newer console can play games from an older system, either using the same cartridges or through downloads. For example, Nintendo DS is backward compatible with Game Boy Advance. If you ask me how, there's built-in Game Boy Advance cartridge slot for only 2 DS models. The original DS and DS Lite could play physical Game Boy Advance cartridges, but DSi and DSi XL doesn't have Game Boy Advance cartridge slot. Nintendo 3DS is backward compatible with Nintendo DS. All models of the 3DS can play with full save and multiplayer support. How? DS cartridges goes in the 3DS Slim slot, and that's how you can play DS games in 3DS. But can you download and play DSi games in 3DS? The answer is yes, technically. You can download DS games and apps from eShop, but eShop closed permanently in March 2023, so you cannot download DS games and apps anymore. Is 3DS multiplayer compatible with DS? Yes. DS local multiplayer works with DS and 3DS. Does 3DS have NES and Game Boy Advance games? Yes, if you have the Nintendo 3DS Ambassador Program. The Nintendo 3DS Ambassador Program is a program that Nintendo launched for the Nintendo 3DS. This program was made by Nintendo recognition of players who bought the 3DS for $249.99 before the price dropped to to $169.99 on August 12, 2011. So if you buy Nintendo 3DS before the price dropped, then you should able to get the Nintendo 3DS Ambassador program, so you can play 10 Game Boy Advanced and 10 NES games. But if you buy 3DS after the price drop, that means you're too late. Does 3DS have Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Sega Game Gear, and SNES games? Yes, you can download and play all the games by going to the Virtual Console section in eShop. But since the eShop closed permanently in March 2023, you cannot download these old games anymore. Not only that, Virtual Console had NES games too. And one more thing, SNES games are only for the new 3DS models, like new Nintendo 3DS, new Nintendo 3DS XL, and new Nintendo 2DS XL. So Nintendo DS is with only one handheld games backward compatible, and Nintendo 3DS is with several consoles and handheld games backward compatible. That's why Nintendo 3DS gets the point. Number 4. 3D Future. Let's break down the 3D Future differences between the Nintendo DS and Nintendo 3DS. This is actually one of the biggest differences between the two systems. Nintendo DS doesn't have the 3D display. The games are in 2D or basic 3D, flat graphics, and touchscreen and dual screens were the main innovation. All visuals on 2D plane with no depth effect. It used simple polygon-based 3D in some games like Mario Kart DS, Metroid Prime Hunters, etc., but it was still displayed in 2D. Nintendo 3DS doesn't have a real glasses-free 3D. It's a true stereoscopic 3D and you don't need glasses. 3D effect only works on the top screen. It uses a parallax barrier to separate the image for each eye. 3D depth can be adjusted or turned off with a slider. Adds a sense of depth like characters and objects pop up off the screen. You can turn it off anytime to save battery or avoid eye strain. Some games use 3D just for visuals like Mario Kart 7 or Smash Bros. For Nintendo 3DS. Others use it for gameplay effects like Pilot Twins, Resort, Pushmo, Luigi's Mansion, Dark Moon. Many games still work perfectly fine in 2D, but there's a limitation of 3D Future. It doesn't work well if you're not looking straight off the screen. It can cause eye strain or dizziness for some people, especially kids under 7. And of course, it's an obvious point to 3DS for these reasons, but not because of eye strain or dizziness. Number 5. Graphics. Here's how the graphics compare between the Nintendo DS and the Nintendo 3DS. The Nintendo DS resolution is 256x192 per screen, and the Nintendo 3DS resolution is 400x240, which the top screen. The bottom screen is 320x240. Nintendo DS has 260,000 colors and Nintendo 3DS has 16.7 million colors. Nintendo DS rendering has 2D based with very basic 3D, and Nintendo 3DS rendering has true 3D graphics and with lighting, textures, and depth. Nintendo DS performance has slower frame rates and limited visual detail, and Nintendo 3DS performance has smoother gameplay, more detailed models, and effects. Nintendo DS example look is like a Nintendo 64 level, and Nintendo 3DS example look is more like GameCube Lite level. What this means in real play on Nintendo DS is pixelated and simpler 3D models, as games like Pokemon Diamond or Mario Kart DS look chunky but charming. It's more focused, more on gameplay than realism. On Nintendo 3DS has smoother characters, better textures, as games like Pokemon Sun, Luigi's Mansion, Dark Moon, or Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate show off real lightning, shadows, and dynamic environments, and you can toggle 3D for added depth with glasses, but it uses more battery. As we can see that 3DS graphics is more advanced than DS graphics, so that is why 3DS gets another point. Number 6. performance. Let's break down the performance differences between the Nintendo DS and Nintendo 3DS, including processing power, memory, and what that means for games. Nintendo DS CPU has dual ARM CPUs, 67 MHz plus 33 MHz. Nintendo 3DS CPU has dual core ARM 11 268 MHz plus co-processor. Nintendo DS GPU has 2D graphics engine and Nintendo 3DS GPU has DMP PICA 200 GPU 133 MHz real 3D rendering. Nintendo DS storage is game cartridge only, so it's small files, and Nintendo 3DS storage is game cartridge too, but not only that, it has SD card support for digital games, saves, and updated as well. Nintendo DS Wi-Fi speed is 802.11b, which is slow, and Nintendo 3DS Wi-Fi speed is 802.11b/G plus Street Pass plus Spot Pass. About multitasking, Nintendo DS has one task at a time, and Nintendo 3DS has home menu access during gameplay, camera, music play, etc. So what this means in real gameplay, Nintendo DS is designed for simple 2D and light 3D games, but it can't handle heavy textures, lighting, or real-time effects. It has no background apps or system overlays. It still runs games real efficiently for its generation. Nintendo 3DS handles real-time 3D graphics, dynamic lighting, shadows, physics. It can run more complex games like Monster Hunter, Smash Bros. 3DS, Zelda Ocarina of Time 3D. It can pause a game, open the menu, check notifications, or launch a basic app. Way faster loading, smoother performance, and better online features. And here's a breakdown of frames per second for the Nintendo DS and Nintendo 3DS. Nintendo DS typical FPS runs 30 FPS for most games. The maximum FPS runs 60 FPS for rare games like Mario Kart DS runs on 60 FPS and New Super Mario Bros. Runs on 60 FPS mostly. The DS hardware is limited, so 60 FPS was only achieved in lighter games or during low intensity moments. Nintendo 3DS typical FPS runs 30 FPS for most 3D enabled games when 3D is on. For example, Pokemon Sun/Moon runs 30 FPS with drops in battles. Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon runs with 30 FPS too, and it can run 60 FPS possible in many games, especially when 3D is off. For example, Super Smash Bros. For 3DS can run 60 FPS. Mario Kart 7 can run 60 FPS. The maximum FPS runs 60 FPS for each eye equals 120 FPS total in theory, but most devs limited it to 30 or 60 total to save power and prevent eye strain. 3D move often halves the frame rate because the system has to render two images, one for each eye, disabling 3D boosts performance in most games. If you're after smooth gameplay, 3DS definitely performs better, especially in action games like Smash Bros. Or Mario Kart 7. So Nintendo 3DS has better CPU/GPU speed, multitasking, UI, FPS performance, and game potential. That's why it gets the point. It doesn't look good for Nintendo DS right now, if I'm being honest. Now anyway, let's get to the next category. Number 7. Storage spaces. Let's break down how much storage and memory the Nintendo DS and Nintendo 3DS have, both in terms of internal memory and game capacity. Nintendo DS RAM is 4 MB, ROM is 656 KB, game cartridge size is 8 MB to 512 MB. It doesn't have the internal storage. DS saved data is stored on the game cartridge itself. It doesn't support expandable storage, so no SD card slot. The DS was very lightweight in terms of data, It didn't need much space because games were small and there were no downloads or digital installs. Nintendo 3DS RAM is 128MB, RAM is 6MB, internal storage is 1GB but on original models. SD card support is up to 32GB officially, but larger SDHC/SDXC cards work with formatting. Digital downloads is supported via SD card like eShop DLCs, themes, etc. The 3DS is much more like a model console. It supports digital games, DLCs, themes, updates, and has a full home menu system. You need an SD card to get the most out of it. If you think of getting a 3DS, it's highly recommended to use an SD card at least 8GB or 16GB to store your digital games, saves, and themes. Because Nintendo 3DS has bigger storage spaces than Nintendo DS, Nintendo 3DS gets the point. Number 8. eShop access. Let's compare eShop access on the Nintendo DS and Nintendo 3DS, since this is another major difference between the two systems. Nintendo DS never had eShop ever. It didn't have digital store, downloadable games, updates, DLCs, but only on DSi. There is an internet browser and it's very limited. Apps wasn't DSiWare on DSi as well. Most DSi models had no digital store. You had to use physical cartridges only. The Nintendo DSi had access to the DSi shop, a small digital store. You could buy DSiWare, small games and apps like Flipnote Studio and Shantae Risky's Revenge. DSi shop shut down in March 2017. Nintendo 3DS had the full eShop from 2011 to 2023. eShop was the digital store of 3DS. Did 3DS had downloadable games in eShop? Yes. It had full games, demos, and virtual console games. Did 3DS had updates and patches? Yes. Did 3DS support DLC? Yes, in some games like Fire Emblem and Smash Bros. 3DS had its 3DS only apps like Theme Shop, Netflix, and YouTube, but discontinued. Actually, the real question is, did 3DS had access to DSiWare? The answer is yes. It was still available on eShop until it closed. You could buy and download full 3DS games, for example, Pokemon X/Y and Mario Kart 7. Virtual console titles like NES, SNES, Game Boy, and Game Boy Color. Indie titles, for example, Shovel Knight and Box Boy. Free demos and system updates. eShop may be closed permanently in March 2023, but games you previously downloaded can still be re-downloaded if you already own the games. However, still no new purchases or demos can be made, unfortunately. Just because of these reasons, Nintendo 3DS gets the point. Number 9. Game library. Let's break down the game library differences between the Nintendo DS and Nintendo 3DS, including size, variety, and standard titles. Nintendo DS has overall around 800 games. Nintendo 3DS has overall around 1,400 games. If you want to have pure nostalgia or touch-based fun game experience, then DS will be the better pick. If you want to have a larger total game library with DS plus 3DS games, then 3DS will be the better pick. If you want to have 2D classics and experimental games, then DS will be the better pick. If you want to have deeper RPGs, the 3D action, or console-like game experience, then 3DS will be the better pick. The choice is yours. But if you get a 3DS, you're unlocking a 2-system-in-1 library. That means over 3,000 games combined. So just because of this, 3DS gets the point. Number 10. Online play. Here's a full comparison of the online play experience between the Nintendo DS and the Nintendo 3DS, including what each supported, how it worked, and the current status. Nintendo DS online play was launched in 2005. It was very basic about online functionality. It had games like Mario Kart DS, Animal Crossing, Wild World, and Pokemon Diamond/Pearl that supported online play. It used Nintendo Wi-Fi connection, which was free, but limited. You had to enter thread codes per game, which was annoying. There were no voice chat or messaging outside certain games. As of 2014, DS online system was shut down. Nintendo 3DS Online was much improved online infrastructure. The system-wide friend code made it easier to play with others. It had games like Mario Kart 7, Smash Bros. 3DS, Pokemon X/Y, Monster Hunter V 4U had smooth online battles, trading, and co-op. eShop allowed downloading games, DLCs, demos, and patches. Street Pass let exchange data with people nearby. For example, puzzle pieces and Me Plus games. Shot Pass sent you content like messages and updates when the system was sleeping. In April 2024, online play for 3DS was officially shut down, though local wireless still works. But that doesn't mean you still cannot play multiplayer. So let me explain. You still can play local wireless multiplayer in the same room for both handhelds. You still can even play homebrew and fan servers like WMMFI for Mario Kart DS, and some servers support 3DS games. So while official online play is gone, local multiplayer still works, and fan-made servers can bring some games back online with a little setup. Well, since 3DS has better online play mode, 3DS gets the point. 11. Battery life. Battery life is a big difference between a Nintendo DS and Nintendo 3DS systems. Here's a detailed comparison across the different models of each Nintendo DS battery life and Nintendo 3DS battery life. Let's start with Nintendo DS. The original DS battery's life is 6 to 10 hours and charging time is around 4 hours. DS Life battery's life is 15 to 19 hours on lowest brightness and charging time is around 3 hours. DSi battery's life is 9 to 14 hours and charging time is 2.5 to 3 hours. DSi XR battery's life is 13 to 17 hours and charging time is 2.5 to 3 hours. It really has long battery due to 2D graphics and low power usage, and there were no background tasks running. Let's get to the Nintendo 3DS now. The original 3DS battery's life is 3 to 5 hours with 3D on, 5 to 8 hours with 3D off, and charging time 3.5 hours. Nintendo 3DS XL battery's life is 3.5 to 6.5 hours, and charging time is 3.5 hours. Nintendo 2DS battery's life is 5 to 9 hours, and charging time is 3.5 hours. New Nintendo 3DS battery's life is 3.5 to 6 hours, and charging time is 3.5 hours. New Nintendo 3DS XL battery's life is 3.5 to 7 hours, and charging time 3.5 hours. New Nintendo 2DS XL battery's life is 5 to 8 hours and charging time 3.5 hours. Nintendo 3DS battery life varies depending on brightness, 3D usage, Wi-Fi, and game intensity. Turning off 3D and lowering brightness significantly improves battery. Most powerful hardware equals more energy drain. Nintendo DS systems last much longer on a single charge. Nintendo DS lasts much longer on a single charge. Nintendo 3DS systems drain faster, especially with 3D, Wi-Fi, or intense games. If battery life matters to you, DS Lite or 2DS is your best pick. Since Nintendo DS has better battery life than Nintendo 3DS, Nintendo DS finally gets the point. Number 12. Top 10 games of DS and 3DS. Here are the top 10 best-selling Nintendo DS and 3DS of all time, based on official sales figures from Nintendo. So in this category, there will be 2 points. Whatever which game is the top 1 in one of the 2 handhelds gets the first point. Whatever which one of the handhelds got more sales combined in the top 10 rank gets the second point. Here's a combined ranking of the top 10 best-selling games when you compare both Nintendo DS, 3DS top games ranked purely by total units sold. Number 10. New Super Mario Bros. 2 with 13.45 million and it's on 3DS. Number 9. Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire with 14.57 million, and it's on 3DS. Number 8. Pokemon Sun and Moon with 16.34 million, and it's on 3DS. Number 7. Pokemon X and Y with 16.72 million, and it's on 3DS. Number 6. Pokemon Diamond and Pearl with 70.7 million, and it's on 3DS. Number 5. Mario Kart 7 with 18.98 million, and it's on 3DS. Number 4. Brain Age Train Your Brain with 19 million, and it's on DS. Number 3. Mario Kart DS with 23.6 million, and it's on DS. Number 2. Nintendogs all versions with 23.9 million, and it's on DS. And finally, number 1, the best selling game between DS and 3DS is New Super Mario Bros. With 31 million, and it's on DS. Well, with the New Super Mario Bros. Is number 1, and it's on DS, like I said, Nintendo DS gets the first point. In the top 10 rank, all the Nintendo DS games sold 150 million units combined, and Nintendo 3DS sold 80.06 million units combined. So that's why Nintendo DS gets the second point, double points to DS in this category. Last but not least, number 13, price. Here's a clear and simple breakdown of the price differences between all major models of both Nintendo DS and the Nintendo 3DS systems, including large prices and later price cuts. Nintendo DS launch price was $149.99. The price dropped to $129.99, then $99.99. Nintendo DS Lite launch price was $129.99. The price dropped to $99.99. Nintendo DSi launch price was $169.99. The price dropped to $149.99, then $129.99. Nintendo DSi XL launch price was $189.99. The price dropped to $169.99, then $129.99. Nintendo 3DS launch price was $249.99. The price dropped to $169.99 just 6 months later. This was due to slow rates of launch and helped boost popularity. Nintendo 3DS XL launch price was $199.99. The price dropped to $179.99, then $149.99. Nintendo DS launch price was $129.99. Price dropped to $99.99, then $79.99. New Nintendo 3DS launch price was around $179.99. The new 3DS was only available in limited edition bundles in the US. So that's why new 3DS never dropped the price. New Nintendo 3DS XL launch price was $199.99. The price dropped to $174.99, then $149.99. New Nintendo 2DS XL launch price was $159.99. The price dropped to $129.99, then $99.99. Well, since Nintendo DS price was better than Nintendo 3DS, Nintendo DS gets the final point. So the scoreboard is 5-9 for Nintendo DS. That means Nintendo 3DS is the better handheld than Nintendo DS. But Nintendo DS has better aura than 3DS because DS was 2 times more successful than 3DS. I mean, put some respect to Nintendo DS if I'm being honest, but nonetheless, these two handhelds are legendary and one of the greatest handheld rivalries in Nintendo history. Write in the comment section below which one of the handhelds is better and write your opinion. If you like this video similar to this video, then subscribe to my channel and like the video. I'll see y'all in the next time. Have a good day, have a good night, and peace.